The law of perception is actually one of the principles we all need to look at. And I'll take that for a minute and run with it before I actually get into these 8 laws, because it's an important insight. This law of perception, for example, I tell people we live in an optical illusion.
Mm.
We live in an optical illusion. You get what you unconsciously believe and expect, which means you're getting your perception. But for most of us, our perception is buried in that belief system that we take for granted and we never question. It's kind of a blind spot in our consciousness. We're living out of a perception that we don't know is there, and so we don't know to question it. And this is a wonderful place to begin, Mark, because if people are struggling with money right now, there's no doubt, in part, a perception they have about their situation. And that perception is reinforcing the situation. So if somebody is sitting there going, well, it's great for Mark to talk about wealth and Dr. Joe to talk about wealth because they're doing just fine, but not me. I can barely afford the internet to be able to be here right now, to be able to observe what these guys are talking about. They're struggling, they're broke, they're worried, they're concerned, and they're desperate in many ways. And so they look at the world and they go, it's not a prosperous place, folks. It's a place of struggle. And this is where I want to interrupt that perception and say, look, we live in an optical illusion. You can look out into the world and say it's one of scarcity. You will find evidence for that, which will reinforce your perception. By the same token, you can look out into the world and begin to think, well, there's abundance out there. There's opportunity out there. And if you look, you will start to find it because your actions are going to follow your perception. Your perception right now has been unconscious. You can choose a new perception and choose a new reality. I'm working on a book right now. It should surprise nobody. And in the book, I'm talking about this idea of perception. And I said, right now, there are 2 massive, well-documented books arguing about free will. And one of the books, published by a university press, by an author who's a scientist who has all kind of studies and records and footnotes and evidence that you do not have free will. By the same token, there's another book by another university press, by another scientist, full of stories and impact and references and records and all of that good stuff, same kind of material. But it says you do have free will. Which one's right? Which one's right? If you got all this evidence against free will and all this evidence for free will, which one is right? And this is where I tell people, you get to choose your perception. And if you choose that the world is against you, or you choose that the world is scarcity, or you choose that you're not good enough or smart enough or young enough or old enough or whatever the excuses are, you will find evidence for it and you will fulfill it. But I think the great gift that we can give to everybody on this call today, this tutorial today, is you get to choose. You can, beginning right now, start to look at the universe and go, okay, it's abundant. And it might feel uncomfortable if you hadn't been thinking that before, but that's how all new habits are. They're uncomfortable. They're a new pair of shoes. They pinch a little bit when you first put them on. As you get used to it, you start looking around and going, oh yeah, I do see opportunities. I do see windows and ideas and inspirations coming out of the blue, out of the sky as gifts. And you move into a new perception.